13th of the RLRS School Board, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do have two adjustments to the agenda. The first adjustment is going to be an action item on page 2 of your agenda, 10.4, with a motion for the approval of the bid for the snow removal for the school district. It is a 2-year contract, and Chris will discuss that when we come to that item on the agenda. I have a second item which I'm going to add between chair, superintendent, and principal comments. So it'll be between 6 and 7, and that is Nini Christensen is going to do a presentation for us about the outdoor club. So just add that in there if you would, please. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 9th, 2022 school board meeting?
So moved.
And can I have a second? Kathy, thank you. And are there any clarifications, corrections, or comments about these minutes?
No. So,
Seeing none, those in favor of accepting the minutes?
aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to public comment.
We have to approve the board meetings from the 19th as well, Mary.
I'm
sorry to
sorry.
interrupt.
We just approved the
We did the
minutes.
August 9th, but we have to do the
Oh, yeah,
special.
in August, that's right.
19th.
We also had an August 19th meeting.
Yeah,
I
I'll make a
apologize,
motion
I
that we
missed
approve those minutes as
Okay,
presented.
thank you. Can I have a second? Johanna, okay. Any questions, comments, or discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimously approved. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chris, for catching that.
Sure.
Appreciate that. Public comment. Sean, do you have anybody on Zoom?
So we have Bridget Morton, 3rd grade teacher. We also have Karen Seaman on Zoom too.
Okay. And do they have any comments?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then to comments by the chair, superintendent, and principal. Seth, can I go check on Georgia and just?
I just texted her.
Yeah.
I just texted her.
I'm gonna take a minute. I'll go before her.
What?
Mine's gonna take a minute. It'll give some time. If you go and then I go, then she can go. You'll do
Okay.
that if she's
Yeah,
not
let
here.
me start then. The board just had, I think, a very productive board workshop. And Mike Boucher from Drummond and Woodson was with us this afternoon and talked us through our board ethics policy and the implications that have for the work we do together as a board team, as well as some of the other legal ramifications of our work together as members of this board. And I don't know if anybody has a comment on that, but I felt it was an excellent session. Any comments or observations? Okay. You received during the course of that session 2 articles. The article was also attached to an email that I sent you, but I also have a paper copy, and I just think it's a really valuable read. So I want to make sure, thanks Kathy, make sure you get that. And it's in the back of the main school law book, and everybody on the board should have a copy of this. Mike indicated that they're updating and will have a new version of this coming year. You guys, as new members, have a copy of this?
I don't know, unless it's in the black binder, I think, is that part of the black binder?
Like print
It is.
I think it is, but
No,
let's
I don't
double check and make sure, and if
Yeah,
you don't,
I
I
will.
want to make sure you get a copy. And it has a series of articles in the back, and they also host a Maine School Law Conference every year, which board members are invited to participate in, and they do case studies of the most current issues that boards around the state are dealing with, and their legal advice around those issues. And so if you're interested, I'll make sure that everybody gets those dates on their calendar because they're very valuable to have. But the article that he recommended we read by Harry Pringle is one that says 10 ways the superintendent and school boards can undermine each other. And I think it's just an excellent read. I hope all of you had a chance to look at that prior tonight. But if you didn't, because it came out too late, I realize, take time to give it a read because it's really important. The other handout that we shared tonight, that I want to make sure everybody has a copy of, and if not, you can download it because it is our board member code of ethics, which is policy NEPN NSBA. And I want us to sign this on an annual basis. It's just really a good review for all of us around the rationale for why we're here on the board and what are the guiding principles that help us make the decisions as a board we make. So, one more, yeah, I don't believe that I'm gonna have enough copies for everybody. So if you can just download it and sign it and date it and, okay, sign it and date it and be prepared to just turn that into Georgia at our October meeting. Okay, that would be very helpful. The only other thing I'm going to mention is we talked today in our workshop about ways in which we can really make our conversations, our discussions, our decision-making process as collaborative and valuable as possible. And I'm going to remind us that we need to follow Robert's Rules of Order. One person speaking at a time, waiting to be called on to make your comments. Deb has graciously agreed to time us. I think 2 minutes is plenty of time for a person to put their stake in the ground around their ideas about a particular issue. Doesn't mean I'm not going to call on you again, but I think if we try to adhere to that, we will have more productive conversations and everybody's voice will have an opportunity to be in the process. And I think that's extremely important. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Georgia. And yeah, I have that, I made that adjustment. I also added an action item on the contract, the bid for the snow removal. Okay.
Thank you, Mary. I'd like to start off by saying it's been probably one of the best starts to the school year that I can remember in a really long time. I feel like our staff and students are just in such a great place. It's a completely different vibe that we've had, and I'm just really, really happy with the start. Our title consolidate application I'm happy to say it's been approved already. Generally, this doesn't get approved until around December. The process was much easier to work through this year. And remember, I had reported out on that, that we would be getting around, I believe, $65,000 in federal funds. So very happy about that. We can start invoicing against that. I'm also really happy to report that, and Jeff can speak to this if there are any further questions, but we did come to some resolution with our lead testing. As you remember, I reported out a while back that we had an issue with one of the back sinks in the kitchen. That has been resolved. The fixture was replaced. Jeff sort of had a plan as to how he was going to work through that, and starting with the fixture was where we were going to, we were going to try to replace that first and then test it. We did that. It came back less than 1 part per billion. And what is the state standard, Jeff?
State was 4.
State 4. So we are good with our lead. And we did send out some communication in regards to that. Our outdoor classroom is complete, and I will be working on getting some communication out to all the donors and thanking everybody, putting something in the paper with a picture of it. So that's really, really exciting. It looks really great. If you haven't seen it, please go out and take a look because it's really nice. And that's all I have.
I'll just start.
I'll turn it over again to
Yeah, so I do have a presentation. Before that, I would echo Georgia. It's been a really nice start to school. It feels like it did before, I guess, but I was talking to a group I was working with today. I've never actually been an admin or principal outside of what we've been dealing with, so it's an adjustment for me. And a lot of the stuff that took up my time before is now open, so that's kind of nice. But yeah, the students are, we're right back into it. The teams are playing. Our middle school team played last night. A lot of sore legs. They had 4 practices if they made everything before a game, so the kids are kind of hobbling around today. But it's just, it's been a good start. I'm excited. We had a good Tuesday time where over the last couple of years, our Tuesday time was used a lot for survival, like how can we get through this? How can we get through this? We got back to, professional development, talking about how we want to do vertical teaming, how we're going to do type professional growth into it. And it was just, it's just been kind of nice. So, but I'm going to have a presentation now. I guess I'll stand over here.
You checking in, Jeff?
Huh?
What are you checking?
I have a presentation.
Oh, you have a presentation, I'm sorry.
It's gonna be
It's a lot more exciting than my one I did for the staff today. No color, black and white.
second step here. I'm gonna share it with screen share, but I had a little bit of an issue. Don't mind me.
So just before he gets it up there, some of you have been here, some of the new board members. Over the last few years, I've talked a little bit about Portrait of Graduate. A lot of schools around the state are doing it. We're a member of the Western Maine Educator Consortium, and a lot of those schools have done it. They're doing one just for our group. So finally, it's starting, it's happening. So can you jump just back one, Sean?
Sure. Yeah.
So it started out as Portrait of Graduate, and working with Patel for Kids, they kind of facilitate the process. We're doing more of, they kind of help us keep meetings up, and we're going to facilitate. They call it Portrait of Graduate. We met with Colin Lewis, our facilitator.
Oh, sorry.
I'm very distractible. So we talked to Colin. He said a lot of schools our size call it a Portrait of a Learner, because we are K-12, it's not just about a graduate. And I was talking to, Kate was helping with some communication out, and I said, how about a Portrait of a Laker? So we're gonna kick that around. So I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about it and what you can expect over the next couple months. Actually. So why a Portrait of a Learner? So basically, it's a collective vision. It's a reframing maybe of your vision. It's the first step in Rise reframing your school vision. It's the North Star on their website. They call it the North Star. When you do this, it's when you make decisions, whether it's maybe at the board level, George and I, at the teacher level. It's something you come back to, just like a school vision.
I'm just admitting, Doris. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Came in at a good time. Sorry, continue.
And the big thing around the portrait is about the community. We're going to create a design team. We're going to be reaching out for all stakeholders. People may not have kids in school, people of faith, business owners, families, students, board members. We try to define our community's hopes, aspirations, and dreams for our young learners. And one thing Colin made a point of is a lot of times we get stuck in the track when you graduate, you go to enroll. He said, remember, you can enroll, enlist, or employ. When we're thinking about what our portrait looks like, you think about somebody who might not be going to college, they might be employed. They may enlist, and what are these competencies that help us do that? We just discussed the skills and mindsets to be successful in an evolving world. If you come to the first meeting, he'll probably show you a video. He is going to facilitate our first meeting remotely of like where our world's going. And at first you're like, oh, this is cool. And then you're like, this is terrifying. It's a lot about AI, doing everything. Like it's a McDonald's, I think, in there with no people in it being run. So it's really kind of thinking about where are we going, and I think our vision is to be successful in a world yet to fully be imagined. It's kind of that idea. We don't know what we're getting ready for. So that's why we're going to do it. And this is who will develop a portrait of a learner. You look, that's kind of the team. You have students, educators, families, school leaders, district leaders, policymakers, higher education. Everybody that is in this community can be on this team we're trying to put together. And that's the big part, is that it needs to be everybody. When I get this team, I want it to be not just the people that are always there, or I don't want everyone to have the same beliefs and ideas, because it won't come out like we want it. You know, we need people that are going to have different things. So the teams, there's a project team, it's teachers and administration. It's really, we're so small, the project team and our school leadership team are kind of the same thing. And we kind of do all the work behind the scenes, we get the communications out. If we come down to a point where there's like a tie between competencies that are picked, like problem solving and effective communicator, we might be the decision maker on some of those. We'll help craft language, like the design team says we want to create a problem solver. They give us all the ideas about what that is. We help create the language that we bring back. So we do a lot of that behind the scenes work. And with the design team is the team with all the stakeholders. So that's who does this. Next. So these are kind of the 4 meetings. So there's 4 meetings. And what we are paying for, this facilitation, is before each meeting, when we have the initial like hour-and-a-half meeting with Colin to kind of get us ready, before each meeting, they'll talk to us. They'll facilitate the first meeting, follow up after each meeting, and then help us in the end stages. So they do give us a lot of help through this. And then troubleshoot it, like if a meeting goes really bad, I say, Colin, what if I like fail facilitating one of these meetings? He'll help me reset and troubleshoot that. On the second meeting is essential skills and mindsets. That's where we start discussing these competencies. I'll show you some examples in a minute. But basically what you want to do is you pick 4 to 6 competencies that you want our learners to have. You see a lot of us like problem solving, effective communicator, things like that. Then the third meeting, we identify and conceptualize the competencies that should be part of a shared local vision for a community's portrait. So you just kind of develop it further. And finally, discuss how to make our locally developed, globally positioned portrait a reality for a student. Like globally positioned. Next. So these, I just want to back up. So like, and what I hope is this is going to be done by mid-year. This is going to be a really good tool to help us start our next step of strategic planning and those sorts of activities, because they should align to a community vision for what we want to do. These are some examples. This one's from Virginia. You see, he showed us all kinds, like with Rangeley, ours might, and we're not paying them for this piece. Our students are going to help us design our portrait. This will be on our website. We'll brand it everywhere. Critical thinking, problem solving, learning how to learn. I talked to somebody about that one today. In this world, people I say are most successful, you're not probably gonna be an engineer for 40 years, but if you know how to learn, do stuff like, you can do any job, really. You know how to learn. Flexibility, adaptability, creativity, innovation. They just have the nice little kids up to graduate there. Just another example. But I talked to somebody, I think from Miranda Cook. They said, the finished product is nice. It looks pretty. You use it in your next steps. He said, but the most valuable thing of this whole piece was the process. Yeah. Creating this is where everything happens. Like this is pretty, looks awesome. Wow, proud of it. But what happens in the process is where we're going to get the real benefit next. Of course, the schools. So this is our timeline. We had to set these meetings with him because Colin is very busy. So meeting 1, and don't get a lot more about this. October 12th, 4 to 6. And so that's like that initial set the stage. Then he wanted about 2 weeks later to have the second one to pick some competencies. Then you take about, instead of a month, we kind of shot for December to give us a little bit more time to do some work behind the scenes. Start developing like what our portrait's going to look like. And and then to finish in January. So as far as getting this out, I want to present tonight. We have Stephanie Chu O'Neill, a press release that's going to be published on Friday. We have a Google form that's going to go out describing the whole situation. If you want to be part of it, let us know. We're going to put it on our Facebook. We hope all of you put it out there, because the key to this is it's not the same 10, 5, whatever people, like Paul said, it's going to be 30 to 300. I was like, I don't know if we'll get 30. You know, it's a big commitment to 4 meetings, but I think it's, if you want to have a say in how we kind of move forward, I think it'll be important to get people to be part of this. I'm really excited about it. We've been talking about it for like a year and a half, and it's finally happening. This would have been awful during COVID, like it's in person. Even Colin wanted to do the whole first meeting virtual, so it'd be easier. I'm like, no, we're gonna have the design team together. We'll project you. But yeah, that's what's gonna be happening. Chris?
Just curious, what's the cost for us on this in the district? Did we find it with grant money? Or how-
Yeah, it was from ESSER 3, and it was 80. I don't have to go meet $8,400. And I did the math.
That's $8,400, is it?
Yeah, and I did the math.
That's pretty cheap for a
It is.
consultant, I think.
Yeah, it is. At first I saw it, I'm like,
Only double that.
yeah, at first I saw it, and I was like, oh, but then I did the math, and like, what we pay for professional development is
Oh, it's-
extremely expensive per hour. It's good. Big districts, it's like 30 to 40 grand, like they come in person and do it. I'm like,
No, that sounds very reasonable for you gonna get a product.
Is the meeting here?
yeah, cafeteria.
So
Yeah.
it'll be Wednesday nights, like all of those are Wednesdays.
I think they are Wednesdays, yes.
This is great. You know what this reminds me of, Seth? This reminds me of the Common Core learning. This is really the work that they did prior to the learning results. So I would just recommend that if you're gonna provide materials for the people who serve on the design team, that might be a point of reference, because it's problem solver, lifelong learner, those kinds of
Oh, the guiding
attributes were
principles, yeah.
really the cornerstone of the Common Core that harkens back to the 90s.
And what they do too is they have, like, we did it on a, like, there's an app, like, so when you're in a meeting, you'll have your phone or computer, and they have like 20 competencies, and everyone starts voting. And
Okay,
it quickly does like, does all your numbers, and hopefully we don't have any ties, and it shows right there what the group thinks is important. It's very good.
I was gonna say, this is very similar to all the stuff I've worked on with like comprehensive planning and stuff we do on the town municipal. So my advice, Seth, would be is you've got a month before this meeting, reach out to us board members that are on various nonprofits and get in and speak to the select people. And in person, if somebody in person talks about this in every meeting that happens over the next month, you're gonna catch some people. So those of you that are on nonprofit boards, if you can email us that, even if it's just a thing, and we should get it posted out out there, because I think there's a lot of people that have interest in this, and I think that you can get a really good turnout, but you got to almost personally ask people to
Yeah.
come.
So once, Friday is kind of when the highlighter will come out, we can email you, Kate's gonna help me a lot with doing the questions and stuff, we can email you that's gonna be in the paper, and that's got everything on it. And then, because it's, the hard part was, we're gonna create, the first press release has my email on it, email me if you're interested. We're gonna create, a Portrait of Learning email account, to kind of
I
funnel
think that's
all
a
the
good idea.
information. And then that Google form, and, yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of.
Because I know that
Thank you for that.
Well, I think they're blasting right now through the health and wellness about the daycare survey and that stuff. And they've done a really good job. I've seen that like 23 different places. So whatever we can do to help, I'm glad to help as a board member to help get the word out, but we can get, it sounds stupid, but post something up in the post office, post something at the library. Have the chamber for the next 4 weeks, put it in their Wednesday morning chamber thing. I'm sure Joni can help us with that, so.
I will.
But I think it's great.
I'm excited. I think the process will be great. So.
anybody else have a comment, question, or? Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, that's all.
That's great. Is that it?
Yeah.
For right now? Where are we with Angelica? Is she?
In Helga.
And Angelica? Oh, I spelled Angelica.
Yeah, well, it's the
Yeah,
J
it's
is
announced
not.
on holiday.
And Hilda,
I would say she's probably not.
sorry, she's not with us tonight,
Yeah.
but, okay,
Mary, and I
yes.
also, in the past, historically, we had 2 student reps. And usually administration came about it. Usually had someone who was a senior and somebody who was a junior. And we historically always had that, so
Yes.
I would encourage that. That way if, I know how some do sports and those things, so not everyone can be there every time. And I don't remember there's a procedure on that, right? On how do you select it?
Well, I know historically, I remember always that we had 2.
We always had 2, and I just think it would be good to get a second.
Well, how does that happen?
What,
I
How
think
does
the
that work?
student council appoints them.
what?
The student council, I
So can
believe,
you
that's,
approach the student council to see if they can?
well, we have one.
You
I
have,
will.
and this is the only person that's been nominated so far.
We don't have like, we don't
Usually-
class, so this is for,
We're in the
we're
process
like getting that. going.
Creating our
Yeah.
student
Again,
council.
Helica was, I think, the junior rep last year, right?
Yeah.
So she's a junior this year. But we always had 2, and it's good to get somebody who can at least have 1 or 2 years on there. So, and maybe admin can put out through just the student, just ask if there's interest, because
Well,
I know.
the student council, once the student council's formed, we'll get that, they did it, Helica, Maya,
Okay,
Autumn.
Jake,
student council,
Lulu.
Jake, yeah, the student
Yeah.
council. But we're still like trying to get class.
I know both my kids did it, they got a good experience out of it, and I'd like to see us have 2, because it'd be good to at least have 1
I
there.
think the process is.
I've actually been asked about it, what the process is, how they go about doing it and things like that. And I was like, I'll actually ask. I had emailed you earlier today, but you hadn't seen it.
Not a lot of kids volunteer up, so it's usually not a huge process. Like, it's like, hey, okay, you wanna go do that? Yeah. So-
So student council will be the.
I'm gonna pull us back in and ask you,
Yeah.
please, to just raise your hand before you talk. That's what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting. Chris? You started to say something.
When does the student council get formed?
And you can go to your.
Elections are happening like next week, I think it is, or the following week. So hopefully before the next board meeting.
So hopefully we can have.
Danielle, you had something you wanted to say, huh?
I had just had somebody actually today
Asked
reach
you.
out and asked me, and I just said I didn't know, and I would try to find out, because, I mean,
I didn't actually know how that happened.
no, I mean, I know
Question.
that, yeah, they've been here, and but they said they had asked around in school, and none of the students knew.
So we'll follow through with that then.
That's, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're
All
still
right. That's very helpful, thank you.
just getting going.
That looks like exciting work, look forward to being part of that process. And anybody else on the board who's interested in doing that, let them know, Deb, and I'm interested, and Chris is interested, you guys are interested, so you've got good board response
That's awesome.
for those meetings, that's great. Let's go on, Nina. Nini, it's your opportunity to share with us about the outdoor classroom.
I just have a little description of the outdoor classroom, that I am in hopes of I just want to let you all know.
Great, thank you so much.
What we're up to, or what we're up to. So over the next few weeks, I'm hoping to have some gatherings. I don't know where to stand.
Stand over here, maybe.
Over the next few weeks, I'm hoping to gather kids from 4 to 6 in the outdoor classroom and go practice things like hanging a tarp, outdoor cooking. I've got to call out to the guides to see if we can get somebody to teach a little archery and canoe skills on the Haley Pond. So I just wanted to let you all know that we're hoping to get it going, and I've reached out to Pete St. John, our new English teacher, and he's still thinking. I haven't gotten back to him, so it's not definite, but Jason, a new ed tech, is also willing to help, and Lucy Simons, when she's available, will also be there. So I just wanted to let you know, and if you had any questions. We hope to do more, but I just wanted to start.
That's great.
Weather's good.
It's awesome.
Comments or questions?
It's exciting, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
he's
you.
terrific. Yes, Chris?
I just had a question. So Nini, what's the procedure with the outdoor classroom? in general, is that, like, is there a sign up for teachers if they want to utilize it? Or do we have a procedure, policy for that? So like,
Kim Dolbeer has made a Google Doc
Yeah,
that,
it's Google form actually.
great.
Yeah.
So that's what she's on.
Well, I got a chance to see it up close. Smokey and I need to grab the low one morning when we were putting up the chairs in town. And it's the handiwork that was done by your son is exceptional. I mean, it's a beautiful, if you haven't seen it, it's a work of art. And I really hope that not just the outdoor club and those pieces that we see a lot more use of it. I'm hoping, September is great weather, that maybe we can get some more folks that decide to move their classroom outside for one session or two. I think it would be great, so that gets used. So thanks for all your hard work on that. I know it's been.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie.
And I'm assuming that you're inviting us to come and observe when these activities are going on. Yeah. So we appreciate the dates. Hopefully some of us can show up and support you in that respect. We're going to move on then to our committee reports. We'll start with policy and Kathy.
Well, we do not have a policy meeting this month because it was the first day of school and I just really went too much. But our next policy will be, I believe it's October 3rd,
October 3rd, also is
first
curriculum.
Monday, yeah.
Yes.
And there's going to, I just got the MSMA policy news and there's going to be quite a lot.
Oh,
They've,
pretty.
they've revised quite a few policies. So
Really?
did you see it?
Yes, I read it, yeah.
So it's gonna be a busy meeting, and, other than that, we're just plugging along.
Well, you're doing a great job, Kathy, and I think one of the things that struck me about Mike's presentation with us today, our workshop, is the really critically important role that policy plays in what we do. And I know that I find myself, whenever a question comes up, turning to those policies first to look for, is there an answer, a procedure, a process that we need to be following. So that's really important work. And thank you. So is policy first and curriculum second? Curriculum first and then
Curriculum is at first, at 2:30.
at 2:30? Okay,
You want me to give that report now, you're available?
sure, go ahead.
Because we didn't have a curriculum meeting either. And we're gonna have that October 3rd at 2:30,
Right.
policy at 3. But I have a request, because curriculum, Seth is for the first time since I'm on the board, which is 6 years. We got this, all of us got this last policy, the program of studies.
Yep.
And so I thought we talked about this at curriculum, but I was gonna ask everybody to read this, the whole board. And if you have any questions about it, if you would email them to me so I can bring them up at our curriculum meeting. Okay?
Yeah, that
It's on the
can I
website.
fill in? Do you mind if I just fill something?
Excuse
Do you
me?
mind if I just add a little to it?
No, not at all.
So that should be on the website, because we talked about that was one of our goals this summer, to get that on the website.
Yeah.
If you go to teacher pages, we should have the high school
Yeah.
syllabi on there. And today at our workshop, I talked to the staff about, I think some of the stuff we talked about was like a book list or like,
Yeah.
more stuff about what's used in the classrooms, about doing priority standards. So I think, like I was saying, moving out of what's behind us, I think we're gonna start getting some of this done. So, yeah.
And that would be good too for us to look at the syllabi and the book lists, and again, so that, if we have any questions, we can bring them up to you. Okay.
And just like a quick show of hands, who's on the curriculum committee?
I would like,
Yeah, and Kayla, you are?
no.
No, you're not. Okay, Joe, okay, so that's the four of us. Okay, great.
We haven't had one since I realized it's appropriate.
All
We
right.
tell you what we do. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
just
you,
send you
Kathy.
an announcement, and if you can make it.
Yeah, perfect.
If
Great.
you're-
Finance, Chris.
Hi, we had an extremely efficient finance meeting today, which we covered the approval of the bid Roxanne and I have been incommunicado about, we're waiting on the final audit to be complete, and then we're gonna meet about that before the November meeting and get that reviewed. Very positive aspects I heard all summer. Everybody was happy with the budget, where we are, and I think we're gonna work out quite well from last year, and that's an attribution to the staff and administration for working efficiently and trying to work through that, where many a district in Western Maine is succumbed to closing schools, facilities, and laying off staff and struggling. We seem to have luckily gone through our efficiencies years before, and we're able to track well. I think that's an attribution to our entire team. So
I think
Very happy
one of
about
the things Chris will have to be attuned with is, given this year is teacher negotiations again.
absolutely, when we get the budget.
You know,
we'll
when
be
we
dealing
get
with
to
that.
budget building, you know, in terms of being cognizant of changes there.
Yeah, we have an economy with 2 down quarters of GDP, and we don't know what the third's looking like, and possible 75 basis points uptick on top of the almost 2% we've had in the past year. So, and I guess if we use a lot of fertilizer, we probably had a tough day today. Hopefully we got a good stack of it, because that shot through the roof due to the war. And, you know, there's a lot of commodities and pieces that are tough. Building materials are through the roof. So we're going to have to just push through. And as we know, labor's in a very, our teachers are a very important asset to me, the most important part to make sure that works. So we're going to just have to be as creative as we can and work with what we've got to try to make sure we meet all the needs of the requests that are made.
Thank you, Chris, I appreciate that. Deb, facilities committee.
Deb was running a golf tournament the day the facilities committee met, so I asked Chris to kind of take the lead, or I'm not sure who else was there, because I was.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a fantastic meeting, but we missed you terribly. I mean, we know you were there with us at heart, but anyways, we had a great presentation from Michael Bynum from Revision about solar options, and as things continue, I think the Biden administration, some of these other credits are going to continue, that it makes sense to take a hard look at it for us regardless there. We're able to answer some questions on the roof and the facilities, and it's not drilling into the roof, it sits on it. There's a lot of interesting things. Several school districts have taken advantage of it. The question is whether or not we want to be a owner purchaser versus somebody else purchase it, and then we look at buying it at a discount once all the tax credits are used up, because there isn't a lot for us in credits, but there's some new legislation coming down that's supposed to affect some positivity or some credits or some advantages for schools. So the first step in the process, if we want to dip our toe in the thing, or actually, catch a few rays, however we want to put it, but is to have an initial evaluation or study done that determines if CMP and their implement control is willing to bless us with the opportunity to tie into the grid in order to do that. This requires doing a basic LOI and some things there, LOI's letter of intent, to kind of map out how things will go. This is absolutely zero cost to the district, and as Jeff knows, I asked that about 3 different ways to make sure. So I think we're in pretty good shape to get that first step. Michael called me this week just to say, to confirm again, because we walked out of that meeting collectively saying, it doesn't hurt to get more information. So why don't we'll start down this road, and obviously any agreement that needs to be signed would be brought from facilities to finance and then to the board. But we can do quite a bit to at least figure out the due diligence, whether or not it makes sense to go the next step with no cost. And then at a certain point, there's a commitment that if we don't go through, there's a penalty, but we should have the answers that we need to make an educated decision whether to go the next step in the process. As you know, that technology keeps increasing, the incentives keep increasing, And there's a clear savings to us right now based on what's going on with energy. And I don't anticipate it getting better, the cost of electricity. So I've encouraged us to kind of at least go that part. Obviously, every step of the way that requires financial commitment, that we will bring back to the board after it goes through the committees.
Makes sense. Thank you. Joan?
I just want to say, I have 27 solar panels on my garage, and this summer I had 2 months when I had absolutely no electric use. And I just had to pay the bottom line number for having myself connected to the thing. It does work here. I mean, people say, oh, well, you can't get it up. You can't.
We have excellent exposure on this roof.
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah, because you
And I
come on the
appreciate
hill, you
that.
have a clear
and
hill.
yeah, we've got this huge exposure to
A lot of
Itinerary
roof.
Park, and there's gonna be X amount of solar fields in every area. And to me, what better place to hide a solar field than on top of a school,
Absolutely.
right? I mean,
Absolutely.
the pilots will see it, but that's about it, and the aliens.
I don't want you.
Right.
Thanks, appreciate it. Okay, negotiations committee is made up of myself, Georgia, Deb Ladd, and Joan. And we will be meeting on September the 21st, preliminarily just to talk through the process, discuss the methodology we're going to use for that, discuss the role that legal support will have in the process. We don't anticipate that we're gonna need to have a lawyer at the table for all of the process, but possibly for caucusing purposes, vis-a-vis Zoom and that kind of thing, to keep our costs down. So look forward to that being a positive experience on both sides. I know last year with the support staff contract, it was a very positive process. And I'm hopeful that, what? Oh, I'm sorry, I know what's going on.
Nothing relatable.
Oh, okay, nothing relatable. Anyway, that's all I really need to say. All right, so we'll keep you informed as we move forward with respect to that. I need, the next item on the agenda, I need a motion for us to go into an executive session regarding an appointee matter. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I need to have it stated out.
One MRSA 405, section 405-6A, I hereby move that we go into executive session to discuss it.
And you
Madam
second
Chair.
that? Sure, okay, thank you. Okey-dokey,
All in favor?
I'd rather.
thank you.
$51.95.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's a good deal.
Cozy koozie. Right here, cozy koozie. And
Could I have a motion for us to be back in session?
So move.
Second. A second? Second. Thank you, Joe. All those in favor? I need a motion as a result of our conversation discussion. Chris?
I make a motion that we vacate the seat for the Rangeley Board for which West Dugan has been sitting at due to numerous absences, and pursuant to the proper notice has been served under our policy.
And may I have a second for that one? Kathy, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Okay, item 9, I'll turn it over to you, Georgia. Appointments, resignations, nominations, and transfers.
All right, well, I'm happy to say we don't have any resignations this time.
Yay!
I do have one appointment. I'm appointing an alumni of ours, Carl Trafton, as middle school boys soccer coach.
From what I hear from reports from the children, he's doing a phenomenal job.
And they won yesterday.
And they won their first game in a long
Yeah.
time yesterday.
It was
They played huge morale.
They were all on cloud nine this
I,
morning.
their legs might have been sore, but
And
I'm sure
they were a little bit, they were limping around, yeah, but they were happy.
so excited that we found him, so.
Great. Okay, we're moving on then to our action items. The first is the approval of the winter grounds care and upkeep bid.
I guess we already have it on there, Mary, so great. Make a motion that we accept and approve. It's already been through finance, M&H Construction. Joe Haley, contact person, to bid is 45,888 for 2022 to 2023, and 45,888 for 2023 to 2024. And, last year was a light snow year, and they actually gave us, I think, the same contract price. So hopefully the odds work out in our favor this year.
So can I have a second to that motion? Thank you, Joe. Now, any discussion? I know you just said it, Chris. So this is really, if I remember correctly, consistent with what the bid was for last year,
It's
right?
what we have budgeted. We're good.
That's nice.
That's nice.
That's really good, because I know from the year before to last year, there was a big jump in the cost of that snow removal. So any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the bid? Terrific, unanimous.
Do your
All right.
contract.
We'll move on then to item 10.2, approval of overnight out-of-state travel to Puerto Rico. Can I come?
Yeah.
For Spanish students.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Kate Gilbert, for those of you who might not know me. And I have been teaching Spanish since my 13th year working here, but 12 years teaching Spanish. So I just want to propose another trip. We haven't been able to travel, not really internationally because it's a US territory, but we haven't really been able to travel too far since 2018 was the last time that we had traveled to Costa Rica. So the proposal is from Saturday, that's okay, Sean.
Okay.
From Saturday, April 8th until Thursday, April 13th of 2023. And first of all, I just want to begin by saying thank you for always being super supportive of all the trips that I've proposed over the past years. Our first one was in 2010 to taking kids to New York City. And you can see they've kind of varied all over the place. But it's really important for our students here to venture outside the classroom, and even most recently in Boston, students learn how to use the subway and navigate their way around and learn what city life was like. So that's really important.
All right, can I have a motion to accept this overnight travel?
Mary, you're going for it. I still had a few slides.
She wants to come. She wants to go.
I'm not giving her
Right, just let her go.
Let her go. Do the motion.
I just want to give you a little more info. So, I've been taking approximately 12 juniors and seniors that range anywhere from currently enrolled. I have a couple of students who are upperclassmen who are still taking Spanish too, but they wouldn't have the opportunity to attend the trip again. So Angelico would be one of them who also can't fit. She cannot, she's a junior, but she can't fit in her schedule. There's a lot of students that can't fit Spanish in their schedule this year because of foster tech. So that's kind of where that variation comes in there. So the requirement is that they've completed 2 years of Spanish or they're currently enrolled in Spanish too. And that they would be a junior or senior. There meet eligibility requirements, so 70% by the end of the quarter. And Sonia, myself, and additional chaperones. We have the female chaperones as well. So we're so it's a 6-day, 5-night trip. Obviously, educational and cultural immersion outside of the classroom. And it's always important that I can teach them Spanish in the classroom, but seeing how it's used outside of the classroom and being immersed in it is obviously super important as well. And, again, the dates are April 8th through the 13th, and there would be 4 school days in this prior to April break. But because it's an educational trip, I know when we proposed the trip in 2020, it was approved even though we were missing school days because it's an educational trip. And then just a quick rundown on the itinerary. We would fly from either Portland or Boston. I have 2 proposed price points, and we can figure out the logistics based on that. But flying to San Juan, there's lots of huge historical landmarks. El Morro is one of the most famous ones in San Juan, but there'll be lots of other things. So it's important to include the history and architecture along with physical activity besides just walking around too. So we've got the zip line tour, the bioluminescent bay is in, that's one of the other physical activities besides walking around and visiting El Duque National Forest. Day 4, there would be a snorkeling trip. So it's kind of incorporating the history and the physical activity at the same time. And then you can see El Morro's in the bottom corner. And then this is Cueva Ventana, which is, it means window cave, which is in the top right-hand corner. And you can kind of see the travel pattern on the bottom. Okay, we talked about being global citizens as part of our 21st century skills. So this is the exposure here. Appreciating why you learn a second language, whether it ties into a profession or something that students might do when they leave here. And the choice of choosing Puerto Rico versus in Costa Rica are the same. We haven't traveled since 2018, so I kind of felt a little uneasy about going too far when a lot of these students haven't traveled far outside the state of Maine to begin with. So passport-wise, requirements to travel out of the country, I just tried to keep it as close to the US as possible here. So that was the rationale behind that. I'm leaning more towards Portland because that's where we normally travel from. Obviously, it's cheaper to travel from Boston, and it's a direct flight as well. But it would be either car or bus from here to Portland or Boston, and then obviously by plane to Puerto Rico. It's a new border transportation. So the 2 price points, I kind of compared and contrasted 2 different companies, and the first company, this is a company that we've traveled with before, so kind of our history with them, and they're being a larger company, they're able to offer us a more affordable price. The only thing that's not included is travel insurance, which is $144 that will be added to that cost. So it's much cheaper actually than the trips we've gone on in the past, which I think is good since we've got kind of a 6-month window to work with here. And so from the funds that we raised for the trip in 2020, there was money still remaining in the student activities account. So we can roll that over equally to all students to start them off with a portion of their trip to be able to at least enroll. And then fundraising and their own budgeting from working is obviously super important. So one of my biggest things, obviously, I've taken kids out of the state and country for a long time, but, my biggest piece is being able to be able to talk with parents, and for my own comfort level is the safety on the trip. So again, there's a tour guide with us at all times, additional chaperones above the 8-to-1 ratio, and students will always be traveling together. And students sign a contract before they leave here and have to comply with our standards along with the standards of the tour company as well. So now, Mary, any questions?
Well, actually, I was looking for a motion so we could move into discussion. That's the reason. But I apologize for cutting you
No,
off.
I love it.
If we could have a motion for the trip and then we can move into the discussion question phase. Okay, thank you, Kate. Second, Joe, okay. All those in favor?
Well, we have
Wait, we're
discussion.
not, discussion, excuse me. Chris,
You know what my question's gonna be. Yeah, what companies are we using and what was your due diligence on that? So, the challenges we have.
Yes, okay, so, and I actually did my research on that because I had a feeling you might ask that. So Explorica, who is now owned by World Strides, is the company that we've traveled with in the past. And then it's Active Sport Travel, which is a main travel agency. Actually, Mr. Brown, who used to be a principal here, is a friend of his. So that was the higher price point one because it's a much smaller company. So while I'd love to support and stay in Maine, the price point for students at this point is just not feasible. But for Explorica, they have changed their travel cancellation policy as part of their insurance policy as well. So it's, the trip cancellation has changed obviously since we've experienced that in 2020. But I wanted to take a smaller company and obviously try to give business to someone that we know, but it doesn't make sense.
Also, are you gonna require the students to buy the travel insurance as part of the?
I have, it was actually included in the price the last time as well.
Because
So it's included, it's not included in that price.
we
but
got
that
everybody's money
$44
back, but it
Will
was.
be exactly the same across the board, because I said it's always the one person that doesn't have insurance, or the same insurance, that they would lose their luggage or whatever, so.
And,
any other,
and I think, I saw your price delta there, you know. My experience at that, the bus is pretty comfortable, you take you right below, and it's only $30, so. Makes sense too, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I will say, even though it was a challenge for the Explorica and now World Strides, is, I think everybody got their money back, it just took a while
It did, it took
Yeah.
a while.
from the COVID cancel.
any other questions or comments?
I support it.
I just want to say, I think one of the things that is a great experience is to go somewhere where people are speaking that language natively, and you find out how fast people really talk Spanish, and how hard it is to hear what they're saying.
Just out of, oh, yeah, go ahead.
This really is a great segue into the portrait of a learner to the curriculum. Just really looking forward, which that's the direction we want to be going. So thank you for doing all the work to get that information to us.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of cost is borne on the part of the student themselves?
Yeah, no,
I know you have some rollover funding and you have kids who are working and those kinds of things, but.
yeah, so that's a great question. So, with the amount of money that's left in the student activities account, I believe it's like around $5,500. We did use a portion of it to take kids to Boston this past spring, so we're still keeping in the travel piece. But that dispersed amongst 12 students, I think it's like 400, Chris, don't do math here, but $458 something, I believe that's what I had done earlier, but that's what they would start out with. And so typically each student, what they raise for fundraising, we take total funds raised from each event and divide it out amongst the time worked. So it's whatever time that they want to put in, whether they choose to just work their job and it's more cost effective for them to do it that way, or they want to show up or send a parent to show up to work for them at the event. So it can fluctuate anywhere. There could be students that could pay for their entire trip. I mean, because really, once you have them, $450, they're really only looking at.
I know a question that we've asked as a board historically is on when it comes to these kinds of trips. If there's a kid who wants to go and they're not in a position financially to be able to afford to support that, is there opportunities for that kid to go on? Is still a student to go on the trip?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things I tell students when they're even expressing interest in going, or I'm pitching the trip to them, is that even if you're, obviously don't expect anyone saying in front of the class that you're uncomfortable or you don't have enough funds to be able to do this, but if you're interested in going, we'll find a way for you to go. Whether it means we have to have 5 more fundraisers so that you can show up at every single one of them, that's great. Whether it's helping you find a job, that's fine too, whatever it is. Or there are people who have been very generous in years past as well that would like to sponsor a student that is unable to afford to go. But I always encourage that they exhaust every resource on their end first before we.
Well, I know historically you've always done that, and it's really nice to hear that, that can still have happened, because that's important. Chris?
I was gonna say, both my kids were involved in the fundraising, we didn't get to go, Jake did. But Kate does an excellent job of communicating that, creating every student feel comfortable. And the amount of fundraisers and stuff she puts together, if a kid's focused and wants to go, they can earn the impact. There's enough activities that are going on. I've seen.
Other questions or comments? All those in favor of voting to support the trip? Unanimous. Thank you, Kate, so much. We really appreciate all your hard work and planning. Yes, it'll be a great experience for them. Okay, 10.3. Approval of an overnight travel for performance for course students at Merrill Auditorium.
Erin couldn't be here tonight to speak to this, but I just want to say that she found out about this opportunity. She was doing flips into my office. She was so excited about it. I guess this is one of her favorite pieces. She's taking 3 students with her. They have a place to stay. They would be staying alone in one of her friends' lofts, I guess, which have separate bedrooms. They all have their own beds. She'll be driving them down. There's no cost to the district other than the travel costs for her to go down.
Yes.
Just gap mileage for her. Everything else is covered with grant money, and their registration fees will cover. So she's on speed dial if there's any questions that I can't answer.
What are the dates?
The dates are September 30th.
Okay.
And it sounds like the drive-in, she said on September 30th, they're gonna drive to Puerto after school. On the 1st, they're gonna rehearse from 9 to 5. And then October 2nd is the actual performance at Merrill Auditorium.
Okay.
And I can say from a safety standpoint, from where she's listed their staying to where they gotta go, it's perfectly fine walking. There's no issues. I know both buildings.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I was wondering, are our students going to perform?
Yes,
Yes.
3 students.
So Oregon's quite a thing.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it, it's quite a thing.
I guess this is just gonna be I'm thinking I might drive down.
To see it, actually see it, yeah, that'd be exciting. Okay, so, yes, Joan.
I have some concerns. I was a science teacher and when I took the books, I took the whole class. I'm a little concerned about so many trips for just a very selected few. I realize these students have a great deal of talent, but I'm concerned that there's a tendency to keep taking very talented students somewhere special. And that the other students don't get to do. I don't see field trips for all of the music students.
I think this is for chorus, and these are the kids that are signed up for chorus, is that correct, Seth?
This is for her singers. And basically what happens with these trips and the reason she takes views, because like singers, they audition, they practice, they get invited to go to this, I believe is how this happened. So when they do their other trips, it's like you get selected to go sing in these, and these kids are in the high school singers class. And that's what these trips are about. You know, I think percentage-wise for 50, I probably should know this exact number, 59 to 62 kids, to have 3 to 4 going to these things is good. But that's why it seems, I think on these it's like few, because it's a competition, not summer competitions, summer invites to be in this choir. Like, this is a big deal, like from what she explained, like the kids get to sing, Aaron's gonna get to sing, all the people that go with him, the instructors get to sing. So that's what I know about this. That's why it's so few in this one.
Is that ameliorate or address your concern, Joe?
No.
No.
Also, but I can't sing.
I can't either, it would be scary. Maybe between the two of us, we can scare everybody away.
I'm sorry, it just, to me, this is not beneficial to the entire school population, all the music students. It may be that these students are incredibly talented, I believe some of them are. I've heard some of them sing, they're amazing. But this is not,
Lifting all boats.
it's not, no, it's just lifting a couple.
Yes, Chris?
I agree with Joe's point. To your point, I think where that's going to have to come from to solve that, to me, is more from the curriculum part, which I think some of you are going to be working on. The saying, because it does work. I mean, the way these music festival and that, it ends up the same 3 or 4 kids get to go on 3 or 4 trips, and the other kids don't. So I think we need to also work on and incorporate in the curriculum to say there should be at least 1 trip a year or something along those lines that's all inclusive. Like, I get it. I went to Mount Blue High School. We got to go to, in the jazz group, we went to Boston, we went to Montreal. I went to DC and marched in George Bush's inauguration because I was in marching band. But those were like additional extracurricular, just kind of like you do football and some of those other sports. You signed up on your extra time. The singers, from what I understand, at least from my thing, is that that's an extra class that you sign up for above and beyond. And because of that, that gives you the opportunity to compete in some of those things in there. So that's part of that quote unquote curriculum. And students are given the opportunity to sign up for that class, but it requires a different commitment, requires learning different music, requires above and beyond that part. But I hear what you're saying. And I think that's where something we can maybe look on the curriculum and say, okay, we do a really good job, I think, on the lower levels with that there. And I think the humanities part is doing a really good job with that piece there. But maybe there's some more that can be done on the high school level to encourage that. I do notice that kids like to explore, because from what I understand also too, is that at least the last 2 graduating classes, and I think even Lou's class and before that, is that almost every kid in their junior or senior year does foster tech. So they're getting out of the classroom. Listen, there is a demand for that and a draw for that. So I think as you folks are going through the curriculum, maybe look at that and say, okay, well, what more can we do? Just like I asked a question with Deanie about the outdoor classroom. I'd like to see more integration. And I think this is part of the whole portrait of a learner, that we can be looking at that and saying, what can we do to develop that more? And I agree, we need to do this kind of rising tide lifts all boats. Did I get done in my 2 minutes?
Yeah, just about.
You.
Johanna and then Seth.
Do you guys only come to the board for overnight trips? Yes, so there are other trips outside the classroom that aren't getting, that aren't being, but it would be hard to take 60 students on an overnight trip. I mean,
That would stress me out.
It's
So
easy.
there are, like, they did with Lindsay, they went down to the farm, and then they went even to Grasshopper Hill Farm. So there are other opportunities, Joan. I think it's just
So I'm
not
talking about music curriculum seems to be specializing on certain kids. I think, for example, if she took, I don't know what courses she offered, but if there was a music class, and they took them, to Portland, to the Merrill Auditorium to see the concert with that organ, that might be very exciting for all the students. You don't have to be a great singer to appreciate organ.
Maybe all students could go to the performance.
That's
That
true,
would be
too.
great.
Yeah.
Please. Thanks, Joe. Seth and then Beth.
I'm gonna practice what Mike taught us, and Johanna said what I was gonna say.
I would just add that as a former administrator and teacher, there are plenty of music related, there are PE, there are science related things that, and maybe if we as a board were given kind of an update of this month, these students went here and this month's here, but there are opportunities for all music or art, performing arts students to be in, not competitions, but in performances where they're, you know, they get a chance to shine or to just see other people shine, and so maybe we can, going forward, kind of see what there is out there for that. I know there are things, and there are things even within the state of Maine.
I think there's already things happening, so maybe presentations before the school would be important to shed light for all of us to see.
Joe, do you have any further comment at this point?
I do understand that they go on in field trips. I know that, folks. I'm just saying, I'm concerned about the nature of so many field trips, with a very, very small percentage of the students.
Your point is taken. I appreciate you persisting in that. Okay, all those in favor of allowing Aaron to do this overnight trip? Show of hands. Okay, all those abstention? Thank you. Okay, I guess the last item on the agenda is adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Everyone always. You'll be on habit. You don't need to sign